Reddit, what is your most cringe story about someone who has a crush on you? Pretty sure I've told this story here before. In the 7th grade I was a very awkward child. Kinda chubby. No fashion sense. And my face generally resembled a gorilla. I had already accepted the fact that boys weren't going to like me. One day I was hanging out with a guy friend. Richard. Richard was a sweet kid and pretty cute, and I'd met him through another friend. It was just Richard and me chilling in a hallway when he suddenly asked me to the school dance that was happening on Friday. I couldn't believe it. A cute guy had just asked me to a dance. Are you sure this is real life? Say yes. You idiot. Say yes. So of course I did what any reasonable 13-year-old girl would do. I screamed and ran away. Richard didn't want to hang out with me again after that, and I still feel bad about to this day. A decade later. Went to a guy's house to do a project in high school. It involved the internet, and while he sat next to me I tried to navigate to Google. Unfortunately, the address bar auto-filled and took me to his last Google search. Page 2 of results for my name. Every link had been clicked. We both just sat in silence. He could have played it off by saying I had to make sure you weren't a murderer before letting you into my house. He would have still been creepy, but you'd be the suspected murderer. That's pretty awkward, but it could have auto-filled to worse things. During camp once I overheard of a girl who was into me. I wasn't that much of a fan of her, so I didn't follow it up the day after. I come past this girl and notice part of my name written on her hand. Asked what the deal was. She lifted her sleeve and my name was written all over her body. I was so freaked out, didn't know how to react. I just ran away. I bump into her here and there nowadays. It's still extremely awkward. In high school, this guy who liked me used to leave love notes in my locker. They always had really disturbing pictures or poems in them. Not knowing that it was a friend, I used to bring them to the morning table to be like, who the FCK is leaving these in my locker? I feel bad about it now because it seems everyone knew it was him. But me. After the first time you expressed displeasure at these things left in your locker, the idiot should have stopped. He was just setting himself up for disappointment. Not your fault, dedicated reject. A girl walked up to me and said, "You're my boyfriend now. Accept it, or I'm breaking up with you." It's about me. Not someone who had a crush on me. But here goes. I once sent a girl an email. In reply to a mass email from a university course we were taking together. Professing my interest in her. I clicked reply not reply all, so I thought I was safe. I didn't know how listservs work. She used to send me baby photos of herself with captions like "You want some of this, don't you Reddit?" I don't think you guys get the point. I didn't want any of that. My work started using a program that began hiring ex-cons. One of the guys hired through this program started showing interest in me. I wasn't attracted to him at all and made it clear to him. Repeatedly. Long story short, he got fired 3 months later but kept coming around the store to visit his friends. I go out to my car to read during lunch like normal, and there's a creepy metal and mesh flower on my windshield. I look around the parking lot to see who could have left it and see no one. I threw it into a grassy area and forget about it. I read through my lunch hour and go inside, and no sooner than I clock in I hear a page that I have a phone call. It's him. All he says is, "You look so pretty when you're reading." I hung up immediately and told the manager. He kept doing more things that escalated the creepiness. I ended up getting an emergency restraining order against him when I found out he added me as an emergency contact with his parole officer. I didn't even know him. Close friend tells me she has had very strong feelings for me for the past 3 years. She tells me this a couple days before we graduate college. I didn't feel the same way about her. According to a mutual friend, her original plan was to romantically profess her love on the day of our graduation in front of all of our family and friends. Flawless logic. Freshman year of high school. A girl had a thing for me. She would talk to me in the halls a lot. And stare. Well, One day, as I was getting picked up by my mom, she flung herself onto the hood of my car and professed her love for me. In front of my mom. She hasn't let me live her down yet. In fact, it's a topic of conversation when we have guests over. A girl tried to kiss me and I wouldn't let her. She kept asking why and I eventually had to tell her the real reason was that she looked like my Spanish teacher and it freaked me out a bit. She got pissed off, tried to storm off and walked smack bang into a lamppost. Pretty much knocked herself clean out. I also had a girl tell me she went bulimic for me as if that was going to win me round. Little late to the party here but here goes. Met a girl in my chemistry class. We started talking and usually sat next to each other. One day I mentioned that I'm a little hungry and will probably get lunch after class. She says she's hungry too and we decide to get lunch together. Normally I'd be excited that a girl even talked to me. But she was way out of my league. So I didn't think she'd even have a morsel of interest in me. After lunch we go back to our residence hall. We lived in the same building. I go to get on the elevator to go up to the 6th floor. And she stops me by placing a hand on my forearm and says wait. I think I left my sweater in your room. I simply look at her and say you've never been in my room before. After this I facepalmed so hard. And I regret it every day. Now she doesn't even look at me. TL. DR. You've never been in my room before. I was 10 or 11 years old and had just gotten a Game Boy and POC registered Sign-Mon Red for Christmas. A boy in my class noticed and was super excited. He watched me play and eventually got POC registered Sign-Mon Blue for himself so we could play together. We bonded a lot over POC registered Sign-Mon and played at every lunch break. Of course I didn't get at the time that he had a crush on me as he was a very shy kid and I was new to this thing of boys liking me. Eventually we started going home to our own places and play after school. This time he'd started to warm up to me so he decided it was a good idea to start farting really loudly. I still remember us sitting in one sofa each in my living room and him letting them rip every other minute. He declared happily how great it was to be home from school because he could fart. And I just sat there wondering what the heck had just happened. TL. DR. Kid that was crushing on me went home to my place and started a fart orchestra. Not me but a girl, I'll call Lexi, in my class is a classic 10/10 and has to deal with this stuff on a regular basis. There's another guy that goes to my school, who I'll call Shiloh, who has absolutely no concept as to how social situations work and in the past has fallen in love with any girl who even talks to him. Because of the continuous stream of guys that Lexi had to deal with, she has her phone set in a way that it will only receive calls from approved numbers. So Shiloh stole her phone and approved his own number. He then proceeded to ask her out and tell her that he would enjoy rubbing his nutsack over her ass. Damn classy at FCK. In year 8. Before the time of texting. A boy who liked me gave a girl on my bus a letter for me. It was a letter confessing his love for me. Written entirely in 50-cent lyrics. The closing line being I love ya like a fat kid love cake. You know my style, I'll say anything to make ya smile. When is the wedding? I heard an entire city in Arkansas was washed away when her panties were wrung out. Oh god. This is making me relive all the horrible cringe stories with people that I had crushes on. What the hell was wrong with me? I'm never going to get to sleep now. Back in middle school. This one girl who had a crush on me kept staring at me during class. All the time. Every time I happened to look at her, she'd be smiling back at me. Then she wrote me a love letter and I was like AWW. Full stop. She was a really sweet girl but the staring honestly made me feel uncomfortable. I've had a few cringish crush moments. But a particularly bad one was a guy I used to work with who was seriously a stage 5 clinger. He wanted a hug every time we saw each other. Not just at the start of the day, but literally every time we passed each other. He was a very sweet guy. But just too sweet for me, my bestie and I used to say he was the kind of guy that would want to stroke your face and look into your eyes lovingly when you slept with him. His hugs started getting too romantic. And one day he caught me in a really bad mood. I had a virus. I shouldn't have even been at work, and I absolutely snapped at him. I felt bad. And we didn't speak for a week. But in the end we made up. He is with a girl now who is as clingy as he is. They have a baby. Good for them. First year of high school. There's this girl I knew in elementary. We were pretty good buds back then. But then we didn't see each other for 4 years. We didn't really talk much since high school started. Except for the usual hello hello. So one day, around the middle of the semester, she sees me as I am climbing the stairs, going to my classroom. She calls me. I turn around and she says something flirty. I can't remember what exactly. As I tried to erase this memory from my head. I wasn't really interested in her romantically at the time. So I shrugged it off. Said something along the lines of yeah. Haha. Then, out of nowhere, she says, can't you see I love you? Comma. As if she had made it obvious all this time, but I failed to notice. I was too creeped out at this point. So the only thing I did was smile and continued up the stairs. Without saying a word, or talking to her for a few months after that. I still cringe to this day. 15 years old me was pretty stupid. Edit. This was a few years ago. I had a huge crush on this chick who worked at Starbucks. But I didn't know her schedule or her car. So, a couple times, I would walk in and ask if she was working. If she wasn't, I would just turn around and walk out. Yeah. I'm not a creepy asshole at all. Before anyone asks. The wedding was 2 years ago. Seriously. I'm still cringing at that move. And somehow that didn't scare her off. A guy I knew in high school and worked with at a restaurant told his best friend, a GGG who warned me, that he wanted to wear a mask, kidnap me with a sheet and put me in the trunk of a car. He would then park the car somewhere and fake my rescue. That way he could be my hero. So that still haunts me a little. High school. 14 years old. Had a huge crush on this girl who was in a few of my classes. One day I was leaving science class and someone behind me says my name. I turn around to see my crush and her friend. Her friend had spoken to me. She continues. Hey, did I tell you it was crush's birthday today? Full stop. I look at her. Look at crush, who looks nervous, and I think 3 things. 1. I've never spoken to you before. Of course you didn't tell me it's her birthday. 2. Hey, it's my birthday in a few days. 3. Oh my god. Crush is right there looking at me. I quickly say no. Comma. Turn on my heel and leave. Only realized a couple weeks later she was probably going to invite me to a party or something. Everyone I've told this story to confirms that suspicion. TL. DR. Girl I liked all through high school probably liked me too. It's nice. Sorry. I mean, relatively speaking, to see a story in this thread that's cringe-worthy without being alarmingly creepy. Not someone else, but myself. Told a girl I liked that I loved her before we even started dating. We were about 2. But that sure put a stop to it. I didn't really love her. I just thought that was what couples did. Sadly, this wasn't the first time I made that mistake. However, the third girl I said I love you to I did at the right time, and now we're married, so I guess third time's the charm. How have you met Ted? Was walking with an ex through a park. Bent down on one knee to tie my shoelace and heard her gasp and say yes. I looked up confused. Then both of us looked at each other horrified when we realized what just happened. Then you married her just so you have to avoid the awkwardness of telling her you weren't going to propose. Right? That's that I would do. Good reason to make the switch to Velcro. My best friend when I was small was my mother's best friend's son. He was 2 months older than me and we were together all the time for obvious reasons. I adored him in the little brother best friend sort of way. He was always smaller than me. We played together all the time and built forts in the woods. Went fishing and swimming. We even ganged up on our younger brothers together. In 2nd grade we had the same teacher and he asked me to go behind the bookshelf because he needed to talk to me. He crouched down so I crouched down. He said, "Okay. Will you be girlfriend?" Phew. I finally did it. I smiled at him and said, "I can't be your girlfriend. I'm your best friend." He kicked me right in the vagina and walked away. TL. In grade 9 or 10. I found out a girl in my class had kept a daily log, over the past year and a half, of the color shirt I wore. Also I found sheets and sheets of paper with my name printed all over it. Being 12 or 13 at a summer camp, some girl liked me. She was alright. Kinda weird but whatever. She could be my friend. During free time she was trying to cuddle me with a bunch of people in a circle, which I wasn't all that into. Since, you know, gay kid. But here she is trying to subtly grind up on my young lap. And begins to delicately, sensuously, but vigorously stroke the bulge in my pants. She's doing this for a couple minutes before I noticed. It was my wallet. I had to awkwardly ask her to stop giving my wallet a handy. I don't think she liked me that much from then on. Well, once I got drunk and banged a rather unattractive woman. Much to my chagrin. She got a little clingy. So, some friends and I were out and she showed up. No big deal. We all go back to someone's place for the after bar. I pass out on the couch. I wake up in the morning and she is on the recliner near my feet. My foot is under her blanket. She has placed my big toe in her vagina. I pull it out. It is bloody. No idea where my sock or shoe is. I go home in January with one bare foot. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Kindly stranger. We have a winner. Given how amazingly awkward and weird I was for the first 20 years of my life, I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of the stories here might be about me. The other perspective. I was head over heels. Ridiculously in love with this amazing blonde. I'm in a store when I get a message from her. And as soon as I that she's the sender, I break out in my silly happy dance and sing some shti. Thrilled, I open the message. It says I can see you. I turn around. And of course she's right there. With a shocked smirk. Neither ever acknowledged it. But it still gives me the heebie-jeebies when I think about it. Laid her a few years later though. So I tell myself it was a part of the long con. TLD. DR. Threw my hands in the air. Like she wasn't right there. Well, I have a few. Middle school was a fun, whimsical time where I met and promptly began dating a boy. Garrett. He gave me his number and all was well. Until one day. I called and the line was disconnected. Turns out, Garrett went to jail for armed robbery and drug possession. Nowadays, my married housemate has a hankering for me. We live with his wife and child. Not my type at all, and the fact that he wants to see how I'll react. Then if it is bad he will work things out with his wife. Is extremely off-putting. Found this out because he posted about it on Reddit under a throwaway asking for advice. He made it sound like married life was a horrid hell and I was the picture of perfection. I had no indication of his feelings before, though I'm known to be dint about these things. Bonus points, his wife is kind of into my boyfriend. We both are no buying and moving out today. Edit. There's also Rich. A guy who found me from the internet and stalked my college dorms. Hollering my username. Volpichausa range. Please, I need to speak with you. It was my first year of college. I met a guy in one of my classes and we would write notes to each other mainly about how boring the prof was. I could tell he was interested. But the feeling wasn't mutual. One day he wrote on my notebook, "Why are you so beautiful?" I wrote back, "Maybe it's Maybelline." Short messaging story. This was at a time when mobile internet hadn't caught on yet, but the SMS services were at its peak and they were cheap in our parts. Me and my then GF exchanged T-loads of SMSs. It became kinda evident that our relationship was ending. We formalized it much later, but we had already known it was headed that way. Anyway, she shows up with a notebook and asks me to check it out. Turns out, she had handwritten down every single text message that I had sent to her. That was a good 250 pages long notebook. It was full. I wasn't sure how to react, so I jokingly said something along the lines of, "This is weird. Are you going to use this as evidence in some way?" Apostrophe. She got pissed and tore apart the entire book in my face. I don't know why. It was something about the way she did that got me pissed. I got up and left. We meet again later and turns out she had rewritten the whole thing and asked me to keep the revised version. I declined politely this time. She messages me a year later that she tore the revised notebook.